So Rusting Sloughing Away for amplified piano and electronics was written specifically for the Universität der Künste in Berlin and for the pianist Huni Shin, who was previously studying there. The project was actually my first project written during my master's degree, written before I had arrived in Basel, and it was in collaboration between the UDK and the Music Academy here in Basel. So composers here wrote for Berlin performers, and Berlin composers, wrote for Basel performers. The work seeks to explore a sort of rusting or decomposition of pre-recorded material, which is a sort of counterpart to the soloist, and the material that the soloist creates live. So the conceptualization of this solo kind of emerged as a continuation into previous exploration in sonic entropy that I was beginning to do in my bachelor's degree. And this piece particularly worked in a manner that sought to cleanly categorize and describe relationships between different seemingly unrelated entities in a sonic space. The goal in particular was to investigate how the most unstable of sound environments can be smoothly traversed through points of commonality between distant and more stable sound environments. While conceptualizing how to approach the work, I was very inspired about and with, I think, the imagery of slow oxidation and degradation of metallic materials. At the time, it was very inspiring. I had even started creating paintings of very rusty, crumbly settings. And of course, I'm a composer, so painting was not enough for me, naturally. And so I was prompted to explore sonically this development from purity to shimmering impurity that I was attempting to create visually. So the piano is prepared with a variety of metallic and rubbery means to render the inside of the piano playing a sort of percussive extension of the normal struck piano sound, which really only appears briefly, I think twice. Scotch tape, patafix, erasers reduce a few sections of the strings to their transients, effectively cutting out most overtones. Then we have vibrators that are used to activate and extend certain overtones in the low register. Magnets and ball bearings are then used in conjunction to generate an enharmonic kinetic extension of some of the strings in the mid-low register, for example, allowing the string to buzz and rattle for a considerable duration. The extensions and preparations serve to aid in a entropic process to assist in gradually disconnecting beginning material from ending material to help slough off the piano's recognizable character, leaving behind a noisy, rusty mess of semi-recognizable sonic soup, lightly tinged with brief appearances of what remains of the piano's character. There are also 15 strings that are prepared with enough patafix to prompt the revelation of a collection of overtones, which I used to sort of explore a frequency interference set within this work, as well as produce the right overtones that activated and triggered a separate technique that involved rubbing a drinking glass in the strings in the middle register. So when the right overtone is present, the rotation of the drinking glass sort of sympathetically picks up and transmutes these overtones into a cluster of high related partials. And I think it's a really pleasing technique. Taking material from my own solo playing and samples, which I recorded during a residency in Krakow at the Academy of Music, I kind of created an electronic part built slowly from processed piano samples, which rusted and decomposed over time, sort of mirroring what was to happen to the material that the performer was to replicate during performance. Musically, the piano is disconnected from itself. Its character is destroyed just enough to render it transformed, while providing enough space for it to retain a distinct remnant of its previous self, a sort of residual spirit. The piano is amplified, bringing the smallest of gestures to the foreground, which then are even further extended by the electronic component. For the performer, this means having the utmost control of all the techniques and gestures, and to have a very careful hand because some of the gestures might elicit extraneous noise. Being highly amplified, the soloist and the role are both almost naked, bare, and exposed to the audience, requiring a very intimate mastery of each and every gesture. Although written for a different performer, I distinctly remember being in correspondence with Jacob prior to my arrival here in Basel, in which we had discussed a potential collaboration on the work together. It signified and still signifies to this day a kind of turning point in my musical development where I really became enamored with the idea of obvious entropic processes in music and the solo setting in which a performer communicates with a disembodied version of their instrumental apparatus. This methodology made its way into many pieces to follow and continues to tinge many solo works that I write to this day. Although very different from what I create at this current point in time, which is much noisier, much more chaotic, I still recognize and appreciate this work for allowing me the space to approach entropy in a more fleshed out manner.